Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of Voyage Recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the new DM Roundtable series, where patrons and I get together to talk about our top fives in a D&D topic. If you'd like to support the channel and jump into these roundtables and other fine D&D content, check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. This is the roundtable for September 2024, and we'll be discussing our top five favorite magic items, specifically from the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. Joining me for this roundtable, we have Cory,
Right.
Jared, Morgan, Stan,
Hello. Greetings.
Lucas.
Hello.
This is a tough list to get through. There's a lot of items, but I gave everybody a specific parameter of only choosing magic items from the 2014 DMG. That's one with a Serac on the cover. And any item is technically available, but mostly we're picking from the giant list of items, which is part of like all the tables and everything that starts at around page 150 in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, starting at number 5, Lucas, what is your number 5? Favorite magic item?
My number 5, I'm picking the Book of Vile Darkness. It's fun. It's like, I don't want to dictate. I'm careful how I give it out, because it's kind of like
How often do you give out the Book of Vile Darkness?
I've done it once, but I loved doing it, so it has to make it, because it just does so much stuff. I was finally able to give it out when we got towards the end of the campaign, and it's high enough level. And basically what was fun is that we had a very morally gray wizard who was like a con artist, and the Book of Vile Darkness just made him officially evil, which didn't make him like act different, because he's not going to be like, "Well, I'm evil." He's like too smart for that. So, but it also just, I love having. It's just a book that make an evil book,
Yeah.
and also it gives. Also, I love having these artifacts with, hey, you get like a tail now or horns. Sorry, that's a side effect. You wanted power. You look kind of freaky.
Nah,
Some of those major beneficial powers, and also it's fun for the player to get these epic level powers.
yeah, for sure. This is an example of an artifact level item in the artifact section of the DMG, and I do love the classic corrupt. I mean, it's very Tolkien-esque, right? The corrupting item. I love that aspect a lot, but I would not have the fortitude, I think, to give it out too terribly often. But it's in the book, and it seems very powerful. Written by Vecna, maybe? Turns your one ability score increases by 2 to a max of 24. Good lord. All right, I'm not going to read all this because there's a lot of stuff going on here, but yeah, that is a lot going on. All right, number 5 is Book of Vile Darkness. Is the first one on our list. Which is 1 point. All right, number 5, Cory. What's your number 5 favorite magic item?
I picked the Figurines of Wondrous Power. They're a great way to give a player character a animal companion that, even if it gets hit by a fireball, doesn't need to be story replaced. They come in many shapes and sizes, and they've been around for every version of D&D that I've ever played. And it's fascinating. You can have something as small as a fly and as big as an elephant. I don't know if those are all in the 5th edition, but they've been a staple for 30 years.
I didn't know they were around that long, but yes, there's a ton actually listed. It takes up like almost a full page, over 2 different pages. There's a griffin, a fly, a lion, 3 goats, I think in one, an elephant, an obsidian steed, a dog, an owl, and a raven. Those are a lot of cool options with different rarities involved. So yeah, that's a really cool concept. I like a lot of the animal summoning ones. The only one that I find that's weird about this one is it uses a lot of arbitrary time rules, where it's like, hey, you can only use this one every 3.5 days on like Tuesdays or something. I was like, okay, I don't want to really track that.
Yeah,
every
in
7
our
days.
campaigns, they usually get overridden to something more usable once per day for
right, like all 5th
10
edition
minutes
items have,
yeah.
like once for a long rest or something. But
Yeah.
I do like those items for sure. Figurine.
Made famous by Drist.
Wondrous power. Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, his Panther companion was a figurine.
I didn't fucking know that. Wow.
Guinevere, or however you want to pronounce it, is a figurine.
She technically lives in like the astral plane or whatever, and then he summons her.
Yep,
Oh.
using the figurine. Yep.
He didn't
I
meet
didn't
her
know that.
he didn't meet her in the jungle or anything. It was just like a gift or something.
Grand theft, but yeah.
Actually, he killed another drow to get that.
Yep.
It was in the Underdark. Yep.
Because he didn't like the drow, the way he was handling the creature.
Look at this fucking
I think it was
Dritz
a
lore
wizard,
just
wasn't
coming
it?
out.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to steer this train back onto magic items.
Sorry.
Refus, number 5, said the ever-smoking bottle. Refus says, I used this in a nautical campaign where a small island was covered in black smoke. They were attacked when they investigated something with other senses. The reward being the source of the smoke was the bottle. The player with it later uncorked it in battle. That was going to be a fairly standard clash of two sides, turning into a messy chaos with 60 feet starting radius. It was most of the whole map, and it increases in size, where everyone's plans changed and became really memorable. I'm not familiar with this item. This just
I
creates
don't
like a
remember
fog
this
cloud?
either. First time.
It's been around for a long time.
So it just creates just a ton of smoke. That's it. Just a huge smoke in a huge area. It's not magical. It's just like, it's a magical item, but it's not like poisonous or anything. It's just
No, it doesn't sound like the cloud itself is magical. Yeah. Use an action with a stop where a cloud of thick smoke pours out in a 60-foot radius from the bottle. The cloud's area is heavily obscured.
and it's not like harmful directly. It's just blocks your sight.
Correct. Each minute the bottle remains open, the radius increases by 10 feet until it reaches its maximum radius of 120 feet. That is a lot of fucking smoke, though. Yeah, it's sort of a fog cloud, but not magical, so it couldn't be dispelled. But, or I don't know if the DM could argue it could be dispelled. Also, only an uncommon wondrous item. That's interesting. Ever smoking bottle. That's one of those like I almost put the dust of sneezing and choke. There's a bunch of like really fun kind of finite items that the players can use in really clever ways, and I have a feeling we're going to see some of those on this list as well. James/Genocider texted me these or DM'd me these, so I put them hidden from all of you for number 5, which says the bag of beans. This is one of those really crazy ones that I think has a whole table of crazy shit it can do. Bag of beans, where are you? Yeah, page 152. If you remove a bean from the bag, plant it in dirt or sand and then water it, the bean produces an effect 1 minute later from the ground where it was planted. And there is a table of about 20 different things that can happen, including monsters sprouting up, statues, a geyser that spouts beer, a treant, toadstools, a pyramid with a mummy lord inside, or a giant beanstalk. The top leads to where the DM chooses. This is such a fuck you item. Like I don't want to deal with that. But yeah, it's a neat idea, but that just creates absolute chaos for the DM to try to handle. Bag of beans. Number 5.
If you give it out, better be prepared.
Better be prepared, yeah. I mean, there's a couple items like that, but this one, the fact that you can spawn like a dungeon, like just whenever you plant the bean is insane. Jared, what's your number 5?
I chose this Sphere of Annihilation, and this was one of the items that's been around for quite a long time. There's that's one of my favorite pictures in the DM's guide from like 1979. So
Ooh.
I was really young when I played this a long time ago. But yeah, this has got a long history, and it can be used as all kinds of ways, like with the BBGE, BBEG, I guess.
It seems like it's gonna break encounters. Like it's just a sphere of just destroys everything, right? Like
yeah,
Notoriously hard to control.
In the old ones, yeah, if it touches you, you're screwed. But in the 5e version of it, it just does I think it's like 40, 10 force damage if it doesn't completely envelop you, like because it's only 2 feet, so something small can be completely annihilated, but you
Right.
actually have a chance.
How does it describe the annihilation? It's like there's no save or anything, right?
Well, you can make a DC 25 intelligence check, I guess, to take control of it. And there's another item somewhere in here. It's a
The
ring.
amulet.
Oh, it's
The
like a talisman or
amulet
something.
that-
Yeah.
The tag that actually gives you advantage on the intelligence saving throw to control it. So kind of like a paired item almost.
That item has seen a drastic nerf from its original form.
Right. Oh yeah.
All the way from instant destruction down to 40-10 force damage. It's yeah.
I like the idea of this as a thing that's in a dungeon. I don't like the idea of this as something you give to players.
Because I think I think when this was created, can't remember if this was because this was back with Gary.
Tomb of
Gary
Horrors.
Gygax said that this is part of Tomb of Horrors.
There was an
The
original
mouth that you
one
would
there.
jump in. I think this spear was
Yeah, and you're just
actually in the mouth that you
obliterated.
jumped into. So
yeah, that's in Tomb. Spoilers for Tomb of Annihilation, but they recreate that same setup. It's not as big, I think. So where a player is designed to like stick their head through or stick their arm through or whatever. But yeah, it's just straight up like just things gone. Like there's no save, there's no nothing. It's just like nope, that part of your body is gone. Can you live without that part or not?
Right.
Craziness. So yeah, respect that it's still in here and has a lot of interesting rules about controlling it and if it can do damage and if certain items can destroy it or if it destroys items. DC 25 Arcana check to control it. Holy crap.
Put it in a bag of holding and then stick that in a portable hole and then put it in a haversack bag and
we're breaking all the things.
Cast gate on it or something.
Yeah.
All right. Brandon's number 5 was the Vorpal Sword, which I believe that is also an older weapon in D&D and has what is it, decapitation function on it?
Yeah, on a natural 20, if your creature needs a head to survive, it chops it off.
I love that that's the actual description of it. You cut off one. Because this is a very D&D description. Roll a 20 attack roll. You cut off one of the creature's heads. The creature dies if it can't survive without the lost head. I love that they clarify all of that first. They make no assumptions, first of all, on how many heads the creature has, and second of all, if said creature can survive without one of those heads. That's fantastic. Yeah, just interesting a little bit. In 5e, the Vorpal Sword is also a fucking +3 weapon, though. That's kind of insane. Automatically makes it better than a lot of weapons. Weapon ignores resistance to slashing damage also. Damn. And then
Can I ask
go ahead.
Question about how often has it gone off in game? Like, probably not that often, but it must be like the most amazing feeling in the world.
I know, right? Yeah.
I did the thing.
Yeah, I'm in huge favor of abilities that proc off a nat 20. Just to add that extra bit of, instead of just having to roll the extra dice, because we've all seen it, like sometimes that extra dice is like, I did 2 more damage, okay. But yeah, if you have something like this, or give somebody a magic item where it's like, hey, every time you roll a nat 20, yeah, it's not gonna happen that often, but you get this other cool thing that's gonna go off. That's fun.
This item is that it's like, it's already a magic item, and crits aren't that common, so... Yeah. But I guess when all the planets align, it's just amazing. It must be,
And of course, the one time it's going to go off, you're fighting, an ooze or something, or a hydra.
Or hydra,
yeah. Either it's got too many heads or not enough heads. You're like, damn it.
Or a troll,
fighter
you
with
just
the
made a
extended
second
crit range.
Or a troll, you just made 2 of them.
Yeah.
Actually, do they even let you know? Do demon lords need their heads?
That's a hilarious question that would probably come up at that moment too. Like,
there's nothing about their physiology, and
yeah,
you assume they have a head, they need it, but why you shouldn't assume that? I don't know. Depends.
Yeah, well, Demogorgon has 2, so he's got a spare one.
There you
depends
go.
on how. Demogorgon. Yeah, you're right.
Just that reason.
But it depends how pissed off your DM is about how quickly you kill the demon lord at the end or something.
Yeah. But also, if you decapitate even one of the Demogorgon's heads, that's pretty memorable.
So Certainly.
All right, number 5, Jason said the Sunblade, another cool freaking weapon. This is the lightsaber. Jason says, my favorite magic weapon, super iconic thanks to its appearance in Curse of Strahd, Undead Beware. This one, it just looks like the lightsaber to me. Sunblade.
I would have put this as number 6. I agree.
Is it actually... Okay, +2. +2. It's a +2 sword and it deals radiant damage instead of slashing damage. And undead with it, it takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. And of course, it gives off light. A lot of us, I think, selected another weapon that's very similar to this one. But I do think the Sunblade's very cool. Any kind of sword that has cool glowing effects is... I don't know, just quintessentially cool. Stan, what is number 5?
I have the Quiver of Elhana. It's basically a golf bag that allows you to store arrows, bows, spears, and it never weighs more than 2 pounds. So it's a very specialized haversack or bag of holding. And if you are familiar with a variant of this in the old versions, it made arrows for you. You always had 20 arrows in your quiver, could not run out of ammo. So I play in a 3-5 game, and I am good friends with the ranger who has one of these, so I don't have to carry extra ammo.
You know, reading the description, it's almost kind of a poor man's bag of holding. It literally says it can hold up to 18 javelins, and the largest compartment holds up to 6 long objects, such as bows, quarterstaffs, or spears.
Yep. I had an elf in one of my games. He walked into town and goes, we're going to be out in the field for a long time. How many arrows do they have in this city? And she bought the quota and filled up. And it's like, I don't have to count arrows now, do I? No, you don't. You're good.
I
imagine reaching in and pulling out a roll of not quarters, but gold pieces.
Well, here's what I'd argue if I was a DM. I'd say, look, you can use your bag of holding to store as many arrows as you want in addition to literally anything else. But if you're in battle, you're not drawing arrows easily and quickly from your bag of holding. You know, you have to dig around for it. So you can transfer them from your bag of holding to reload your normal quiver, or you could have that really cool quiver, Elhona's, which would be the same thing. So I can see the value if it's a lower level campaign or at least at the lower levels for the moment, where you appreciate the simple things that aren't just overpowered yet.
I like the idea of a magic quiver, but I want it to do more things. At the very least, make the arrows magical or something. But I get that it's an uncommon, it's pretty low level. I started doing D&D with us keeping track of arrows and stuff, and then stopped doing that a couple years ago, I think. Like, we don't fuck around with doing ammo anymore. Like, I don't care. Like, I like it when video games don't track it, so I'm like, I'm not going to track it anymore.
I like even before. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's kind of like the Legolas clover. You know, it never runs out. So, you know, I would be okay with homebrewing this and making it so it does produce its own arrows. Plus, you can use the golf bag function of, hey, I've got an arrow, or I've got a bow that does cold damage.
Yeah.
I've got a bow that does fire damage, and I can swap them out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I want to see more of that kind of stuff.
Caveat to what I do, I do the approach of infinite free arrow. Don't worry about arrows. Except even before Baldur's Gate came out, I did the same thing where it's like, don't worry about arrows, but that doesn't count for magic arrows.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. I do that too, right? I've done that. You know, I gave somebody like poison arrows or something. It's like, all right, you have this many of this specific finite thing. Or what was it in our last campaign where Reese's character had, they literally crafted those special arrows like every once in a while. And they had a finite use of those. So yeah, I agree that if it's a magic thing, that definitely needs to be tracked. My number 5, which segues very nicely from talking about the quiver, is the bag of holding, which is an item that's going to come up, I think, a few times on this list. I think it's just a very classic, probably one of the most famous Dungeons & Dragons items, I would probably argue. It's one of those items that every campaign kind of ends with. It ranges in usefulness from kind of useful and we forget about it to like, oh, really fun, let's put this flame skull that we destroyed into it and then at some point later in the session, we can just dump this flame skull out and run away or something, which happened in one of our campaigns. So it's just one of those things you give to the party that, hey, it solves a whole loot issue problem that, frankly, I never want to deal with anyway, but also the party can come up with some kind of clever shenanigans and schemes to use the Bag of Holding with. Number 4, Lucas, what do you got?
Oh, should I do my number 5?
Oh, I totally missed you, didn't I? Your shit's hidden over there. That's why. Morgan, go ahead. Number 5. Sorry.
Yeah. For my number
It's
5,
literally
I
blank,
had
so
the
I just skipped it.
lantern.
Sorry.
I had the lantern of revealing. And if anyone else has read that in there, it's basically a lantern that gives you 30 feet bright light, 30 feet of dim light, and in the 30 feet of bright light, it also reveals any invisible creatures or objects. So it's great to put on a boss that your players don't know. They're going to try sneaking up on the thing with an invisibility spell, and suddenly they're revealed. And then later on, they can use it, throughout the rest of the campaign too, because it's pretty much useful all the time, and it only takes one thing of oil, and it runs for 6 hours. So it's really convenient.
Please don't give him ideas.
Also, a lot of parties don't have a lot of dark vision, so they would appreciate not only a light source, but a light source that actually does an extra thing on top of it. So that's pretty cool. Write that on. Lantern of Revealing. Good example of another just useful low-level item that I feel like more of us need to be using for sure. All right, officially on to number 4, Lucas.
It's a boring one in a way, but I feel it's like necessary. The flame tongue, because it's just an incredibly useful, basic early game, but incredibly strong magic sword. Give it to
Yeah.
them, they'll be happy, and it'll last a while because it's so strong for its rarity.
I'm a fan. No, it's it's like the Sunblade, right? Like it's just the cool like glowing sword effect. Something that I think Stan mentioned. Well, we'll get to what you said about it, but with certain classes, really enjoying this sword as well. But shockingly, I've never given it out, even though I think I should have. It's such a cool weapon. I also think it's very easy to re-flavor this weapon. Both the base of the weapon, you could have like a mace tongue, what it's not called, whatever, flame mate, whatever. It's you can change the weapon, but you can also change the elemental on it. Have it just light up with cold or poison or radiant or something. Like that's awesome. Like it can be used so many different ways. It's very simple.
I had my player. She changed patrons to become a hex blade, and then I said, "Okay, your flame tongue is now necrotic."
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was mid game, so it wasn't so bad. But basically, it's just like it's obviously like, oh, of course it's stronger. It's on fire. It's not like the +1 next to the name.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, why is it stronger? Because it's on fire and it's a sword.
It feels cool too that the player gets to activate it, right? That's such a stupid thing, but like, no, as a bonus action, I gotta be like flame on and like turn my sword on and like just do it. Like that's fucking cool to me. Even though it's technically
uses of the universe.
Even though technically this is a bonus action, but yeah, you want to do your cool like I have the power. Cory, number 4.
I've got the bag of beans.
The bag of beans. All right, I just tried to talk about the bag of beans earlier, so now sell me on the bag of beans.
Well, it's been used in multiple campaigns of ours. Usually in a panic when there's desperate situations and you need something to happen to make it cause a distraction, or it's just led to very memorable campaign moments where somebody planted a bean in the hopes of getting something good, and they'd made the situation worse by some awful monster.
I was gonna say most of these do not make any situation good that I'm reading.
Well, I had a party drop the pyramid with a mummy lord in a cave, and they just climbed the pyramid and got out of the encounter. They didn't go into the pyramid. It just was like an emergency 60-foot ladder or whatever. So
there's been lots of pyramid with a 60-foot square base bursts upward. God.
Yeah, it's just been lots of fun, where people are hoping for something powerful and they end up with a tree that grows eggs, And if you happen to eat the eggs because you're crazy, you can either be horribly poisoned or gain permanent bonuses to your stats. It's just fun.
Yeah, my players would love this fucking thing, and that terrifies me.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think I can give them this much power because they would abuse the fuck out of it.
They'll just get the statue that insults them and tells everybody where they're located.
How many boats would they sink with that?
Oh my god. Just 24 hours of verbal insults.
Mhm.
Has this been around for older
Yes.
edition? Okay.
There are multiple older versions with even more expansive lists than just 20 items. I believe there may be one in one of the old books that's got about 100 listings. I'm not sure, but yeah.
You can also apparently dump the entire contents on the ground in order to create an explosion of beans that doesn't deal a whole lot of damage. It feels like a bad use of that item.
Yeah.
5d4 fire damage. Bag of beans. All right. Number 4, Refus said the instrument of the bards, which is technically one entry, I guess, even though there's... I'm going to flick to the page real quick. Yeah, instrument of the bards is its own entry, and there's a table. Okay, I guess it's just which spells you get is the different instruments. It says, I gave a player the... I don't know how to pronounce that either. The Focalon Bandor. I don't know what the fuck that is. Bandalore? That none of us could pronounce. Okay. Which was funny, but also memorable, as I think it gave it out a tad early, making the bard really powerful for their level, gaining fly and invisibility. Yeah. I think they all do a charming effect as well.
Yeah, I believe if you charm somebody, you have advantage in influencing them.
Right, which is definitely what bards are going to do.
Yeah.
And then
There's one of those in Baldur's Gate 3.
A magic instrument.
In that first area. On the first map.
God, they all give you fly and invisibility and levitate, plus the spells listed for that particular instrument, which then include all these other spells. Wow, yeah, those are pretty damn powerful. But yeah, as a bard, it feels good to get a fucking magic instrument, I think. That's probably the one thing bards would covet more than anything, so shout out to the instrument of the bards. Or the bard. Instrument of the bards? Bards. James / Genocider, what did you say for number 4? You said Hammer of Thunderbolts. Badass weapon. I think so. Is this literally the Thor one that comes back to you?
I think so.
Yeah, H. There's a lot of page flipping in this one. Hammer of Thunderbolts. +1 weapon. Has Giant's Bane. The hammer has 5 charges. You can spend 1 charge to make a ranged attack with a weapon, hurling it. Where it deals damage and a thunderclap. And it stuns targets. Regains 1d4 +1 charge as daily dawn. Yeah, pretty cool.
I believe it also stuns party members, so that's kind of fun.
The Giant's Bane requires attunement. You must be wearing a belt of giant strength and gauntlets of ogre power to attune to this weapon. That's fucking interesting. There's not a whole lot of set collection items in Dungeons and Dragons.
Do you waive those requirements, or do you just give them all out?
Make it a quest. Those are your 3 magic items, and you're searching for those.
Yeah.
That would use up all your 3 attunement slots too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be your whole thing.
They're just like, okay, you're a Thor now.
But it doesn't say you have to attune. Yeah, it does require attunement. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. It doesn't seem like it seems like it needs to be more powerful than it's a legendary rated item that requires other magic items.
Mm-hmm. I love the graphic. The dwarf on the hammer's head looks like he's constipated. So
so angry. But yeah,
because he doesn't have the gloves yet, so it's just a +1 hammer.
Sure.
Yep.
It doesn't even deal damage when you throw it. It just stuns, which stun is really powerful, I guess. But damn, I feel like
that can be one of those items where if you have to kill the boss to get those.
Hey, this one does have another critical hit feature on it. When you roll a 20 on an attack roll made with this weapon against a giant, the giant must succeed on a DC 17 con save or die.
Yeah, but it's a giant. Their con there because it's going to be through the roof.
Specifically
so.
have to be against a
Go.
giant. Specifically has to roll a nat 20, and they get to make a save. That's a lot of
Yeah.
things that have to happen in order to get this off. And you also have to be like, this is a lot of requirements for this weapon. I feel like this weapon's actually undertuned a little bit for everything involved there. All right, that's my MO of the Hammer of Thunderbolts. Jared, number 4.
Sending stones. These aren't really powerful, but they can be really helpful. And I always use them and make like earrings or rings for
Oh, that's clever.
like married couples, like NPCs and stuff like that. And you can talk almost like doing some espionage. So it's just like flavor almost.
I mean, they're magic walkie-talkies, which
Exactly. And like a medieval.
right, which you kind of need like to make some of these plot points and things happen, because a lot of these campaigns have players going all over the place, and if you don't want to just have, you know, teleportation or wizards just appearing in, you know, holograms or whatever, which I've definitely done before, then sending stones is probably your next best thing, which I've also used. Because
I like to split the party and do like things that happen simultaneously at the same time.
yeah,
So this helps organize it.
I kind of cheated with my patron game and just let everybody have like little sending stone earpieces in their ear, like fucking like heist movies and stuff, just so they can solve that problem of communication. Only an uncommon magic item too. I guess they do have that weird limitation where technically they can only be used like once per day, and it's like a limited amount of words, I think. All these restrictions on it.
Is it just once per day?
I think, is this the one? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I don't think you have to touch it.
Once sending is cast through the stones, they can't be used again until the next dawn.
Oh wow.
But it doesn't have, okay, maybe I'm thinking of the suggestion spell that has a limited phrase then.
And I think the actual sending spell
Oh, is that
itself
the
is 20.
Has the limitation.
okay, you're actually just using the spell. Brandon's number 4 was Flame Tongue, which we've seen before on a number 4 list. We like the Flame Tongue. It gets to do its Flame On ability. Jason, for number 4, said the Immovable Rod. In Rod We Trust. The rod really fosters creativity in the player because it has so many possible but not obvious uses. Yeah, I think it's a really creative, weird ass item that parties can use in really strange ways. They push a button and the rod cannot be moved, so you can use it to lock doors. You can use it as a platform, I guess. I'm sure you could throw it in a creature and make them choke to death. I don't even know like all the weird things you can do with it, but
2 of them you can literally make your own ladder.
yeah, that's very true.
I remember I gave one of my parties an immovable rod a long time ago, and it's really memorable because they've never used it. It's just like, it's like a running joke that like, we have all this junk we've collected, like and like, yeah, it's just funny. Not that it's not great, but they just were like, forget this.
I love that it has a very specific number. It can hold up to 8,000 pounds of weight. More weight causes the rod to deactivate and fall. 8,000 pounds is the number. That's just a good trivia question. Stan.
That'd be really good for like a trap where it's like it's supporting like a floor, which weighs about 8,000 or less than 8,000 pounds. But when the players walk on the floor, it will increase the weight and then it'll collapse.
The one rod keeping everything up.
To lift them all.
Stan, number 4.
Flame Song.
Flame Tongue.
Yeah, it's fun to get the extra damage dice to characters that aren't paladins and rogues, because they get to roll some extra dice, and rolling dice is fun. But if you do have a rogue or a paladin that gets it and they crit, you might need to add extra hit points to your monsters, because this is going to hurt a lot.
I didn't even think about that with like the sneak attack, procking off all that. That's delicious.
I had a rogue, she halfling rogue critted, with a flame tongue, and she was about level 6. She turned that poor thug into a jack-o'-lantern. So, and she rolled really well on damage. It was like well over 60 points of damage on that one hit.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, he was a jack-o'-lantern after that.
All right, Morgan, I won't skip you this time. Would you like to join the Flame Tongue crew, or do you have a different number 4?
I have a different number 4. I have the Bag of Devouring. And I'm not sure if anyone else put that on the list.
Is this the anti-evil thing?
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
mean
it
one.
looks
That's
like
the
a
one
bag
Gary
of holding.
Gygax. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact that in 5th edition, what it does, it basically, if anyone puts their hand in it, they can be drawn into the bag, and they have to try getting out. But the other part of that is it's a get rid of a boss bag.
Oh, no.
They can just walk into a room, put it on the boss's head, and the boss is gone.
Nope, don't
So
like
it
that.
leads to lots of interesting stuff. On the other side of things, if they do get drawn into it, it creates a whole other story that you can tell.
I guess
Here I
so.
thought it was just like a troll item. We're like, haha, you lost your stuff because you thought it was a bag of holding, you idiots.
Right,
Haha.
there's two items that are like this. Maybe there's more. The Bag of Devouring is supposed to kind of look like the Bag of Holding, to where it's like a mimic almost feature, right? Where they're like, oh, we got a Bag of Holding, and then it's like, it's eating my hand. And the other one I think is like the Dust. I think it's the Dust. There's some bag where it's like the
dust of sneezing and choking looks like dust of disappearance or dust of appearance.
Yes.
There used to be a third one, the grimoire, the vacuous grimoire. It looks like a magical tome, and you pick it up and it sucks you in. If kind of like Army of Darkness, one of those books on the plinth from Army of Darkness.
Those are just mean, man. It's like mimic shit. Like you're just like making your players paranoid about everything.
Gary Gygax torturing his players.
Yeah.
Mirror of opposition as well in that category.
Jeez.
Your evil twin comes out and you have to immediately fight them to the death.
But Morgan, you're thinking like, no, let's let the players know it's a Bag of Devouring, and then they can use it to like defeat the boss instantly.
Well, kind of. I usually don't tell them at first that they have it, and then once they realize what they have, usually I try to throw an NPC at them that tries to rob them, and the NPC is pulled into the bag. So, like, some random street urchin tries to rob them on the street. All of a sudden, there's a street urchin that gets drawn into another dimension, and they go, "Oh, that's not supposed to happen." And they have something that they use in lots of different situations.
All right. Bag of Devouring. I like we got the Bag of Holding and the Bag of Devouring on here. My number 4, I think, is just a very classic magic item that I've seen in, I think, every one of our campaigns, but somebody will probably be able to cite one that we didn't, is the Wand of Magic Missiles. This is a wand that can cast magic missile. It's also one of the only wands that does not require attunement. So technically it scales beautifully because it doesn't require attunement. So you can just, hey, I'm low on spell slots, or I just need to, or maybe it's like, oh, I'm a fighter and every once in a while I just like to cast magic missile. Like it has no restrictions on it whatsoever. And it gives the player the option of either doing a few pew-pews, or what I usually see is somebody's like, oh, I'm going to use my wand this one time per day to cast like 8 missiles at something so that it feels good to roll all those dice. My players have always really appreciated this item. Maybe it's not the sexiest item out there, but I think of all the wands, I think it's one of the more easier one to give out because it doesn't require attunement. Magic Missile is a pretty easy spell to give out to people, and it has that cool feature of being able to increase the charges of how many you're shooting with it.
A guaranteed hit is nice.
That's very true too. Shout out to Magic Missile for no attack roll or save whatsoever. Only shield can stop it. Lucas, number 3.
Okay. Potion of Healing. I know it's not flashy, but it changes the game, or keeps the game how it's non-magical spell healing.
Yeah.
It needs to be there in some form and should be encouraged. Maybe not to the huge extent in Baldur's Gate 3 because that's a video game, but like there should be an option that you don't have to be a spellcaster who knows these spells. It's just an essential part of the game, I think.
Well,
I'm just not putting it that much higher because it's not that like exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody put it on the list. It's a weird one to put on a list, right? It's technically nobody's probably favorite magic item, but it
It's
is.
not flashy, it's not creative, it's just necessary. Same reason like the flame tongue, but way more so.
But it is like the most important magic item, right? Like nobody's. When's the last time anybody played an RPG? An RPG in general that didn't have the classic potion of healing that shores up that weakness. Even if you have a healer, potion of healing is still very fucking useful to have. Now in 5e, it gets interesting because if you're a really hardcore number cruncher, like healing is like such a waste of time. You just need to be dealing damage all the time, and the only time
even then out of combat.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, but to what I was gonna say is the only reason you should heal is to get people up if they're down, and a potion of healing can technically do that as well. You may have to use some kind of house rules here and there, and I actually really like Baldur's Gate to use that again. House rules where or their rules, so I incorporated those into our current game in terms of how the action economy works and whether you can use potions on other people and how all that plays out, especially when you have a party that does not have any other healing capabilities. So,
Just a quick question about while you guys are here. Do you guys say there's someone unconscious and he's like, oh no, I need to give them a potion of healing. Do you like cradle their head and bottle feed them? Or is it just like, yeah, there you go, pour it on you?
Like an egg, you like crash it over and they just absorb it. I think everybody describes it probably a little bit differently. In terms of how it works out.
Yes, you can drink it, best case scenario, but like if they're unconscious, just like drizzle it on you, I guess.
I think that's the classic is when you have somebody who's just like, unconscious, their lips are parted, and you're just trying to you're like wringing the washcloth of water, just like the potion dribbles or whatever. But yeah, it's something like that.
Barbarian rage feeds them.
All right, potion of healing number 3. Cory number 3.
Well, I picked a new one that I think only existed in 5th edition. I picked Sentinel Shield, mainly because there's always some party member that wants it in the 4 or 5 campaigns I've run in 5th edition. It's basic. It's not even doesn't even give you a +1 to armor class or anything. But what it does do is give you advantage on initiatives and advantage on perception checks. And so it doubles your passive perception score or adds 5 to it. And you get to roll initiative with advantage. And it's useful for anyone that can use a field.
Yeah, talk about two of some of those common fucking rolls you do in Dungeons & Dragons. Initiative and perception checks. So yeah, improving those, probably great. Having that on a shield is interesting. It does not require attunement.
And it's uncommon, so it's not...
Yeah. It's equivalent to like a +1 shield, although it's not a +1, but still, having those checks is actually really fabulous. I love that item. Yeah, I've not seen that before. The fact that it doesn't actually add to AC and upset the balance too much, but still gives the player some really good passive buffs. That's fabulous. Let's see. Refus number 3 was the Bag of Holding, which we've seen before. He said, I loosely watch weight in games, and this is just the DM and player excuse to ignore limits. I do not pay attention to any kind of encumbrance. I don't give a shit, just like ammo. But I do appreciate having an extra dimensional space to store things in. So, yeah. Bag of Holding gets more points on there. James/Genocider for number 3 said the Holy Avenger, an iconic paladin weapon. I think similar to the Flame Tongue and the Sunblade. It's just a cool light up sword. That's just a cool fucking feature. Is this one only paladin only?
Traditionally it was. I don't know if it is in 5th.
Okay, it's a legendary, and it does say requires movement by a paladin.
Yeah. In the older versions, it's awful good, but it was +5 in the earlier editions before they capped it.
Yeah, they don't. I think +3 is as much because we have proficiency bonus now. When you hit a fiend or an undead, the creature takes an extra 2d10 radiant damage. And then you have an aura, a 10-foot radius around you. All creatures friendly to you in the aura have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Holy shit. If you have 17 or more levels in the paladin class, that's an interesting requirement, the radius of the aura increases to 30 feet. Paladins already have an aura, right? That comes online at like 6th level or something?
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
subclasses actually gives you like bonuses for like wisdom, intelligence, and charisma saving throws,
Okay.
but nothing specific for spells. I don't think.
Yeah, spells and other magical effects. That phrase "other magical effects" is doing a lot of fucking lifting. By the way, there would be a lot of arguments at the table. Be like, well, is this a magical effect? Like that would be a lot of arguing back and forth. But yeah, pretty cool. I don't just a sexy sword for a paladin. I mean, I would argue that doesn't every class need a cool signature? But and some of them do, right? Instrument of the Bards, Staff of the Magi, Holy Avenger.
If anything, the biggest problem is that it illustrates that they didn't finish the job. Well, everyone needs like a. I guess there's like the Staff of Power for wizards.
That's
The
kind of what I'm thinking.
iconic
Yeah, like
one where you
everybody.
break it and it explodes. But not for everyone. Not nearly, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, everybody should have like a signature set collection piece of like a couple different items that are like so made for that. If you were like the traditional version of that class, you would have like the full garb of that, and you don't have to choose the whole set, but you could pick items here and there. Number 3, Jared.
I chose Heward's Handy Haversack, which is just a smaller version of the bag of holding. The verbiage on it's almost identical except for like one line that says that the item that you reach into is always on top. But in the verbiage, it still says it takes an action. So I like to like change that to a bonus action because of the specialty of the bag.
Hmm.
And it's really similar to items that I've created in my own campaigns for smaller bags like Schmurtle Pitzel Crank, who's a little a gnome, and it's Schmurtle's Deep Pocket, which is just like a pouch of holding, which is even smaller. So, but I like the name. That's why I picked it over the bag of holding.
You know, I'm learning that we all really like these kind of items, though, right? Like these.
The named items after
Well, the name, but
like
also
an
like
NPC or character.
the Mary Poppins bags, right? I think people, DMs and players both actually kind of like the Mary Poppins bag. We're like, oh, we can just put all kinds of crazy shit in there and then pull them out as we need them. Yeah, they're all pretty popular amongst our group. I love the specific rules about, and I think you mentioned earlier, if you combine some like the bag of holding and the handy haversack and all these things, it creates like this, like ripping fucking space time.
Black hole.
That would be a cool thing to frame a campaign around.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 3, Brandon said the Necklace of Fireballs. You think Fireball's an overtuned spell? Wait till you give your party several fucking grenades of fireballs. Be prepared for that one. 1d6 plus 3 beads. Use an action to throw it up to 60 feet away. When it reaches the end of its trajectory, the bead detonates as a 3rd level fireball spell. It's literally a like bandolier of grenades. And fireball is already a famously overtuned spell. I think purposefully because it's like grandfathered in as a powerful spell for 3rd level. And you can hurl multiple beads or even the whole necklace as one action. Well, of course a player is going to do that. Who's not going to do that? Like, I got 5 fireballs. What am I going to dole these out like one at a time? I don't think so. You're going to fucking lay them all out there. Increase level of fireball by 1 for each bead it could be on the first. Holy shit. Yeah. Absolute fun, but be prepared. You're giving your players a temporary nuclear weapon. Jason, number 3, said Sending Stones, which we've talked about before. He says, great for so many things, including the party, keeping contact with distant NPCs. Also a fun tool for DMs, such as you've always had this one Sending Stone, but you're not sure who had the other one, and no one has responded until they've reached out, at least not until today. That's a cool thing. I would also argue...
That's a really cool plot point.
You could twist that and say whatever random-ass object or item that your party member has had on them. Oh, by the way, that's actually a paired Sending Stone. This like childhood thing you've had. Like that's a very cool idea. Neat way of doing Sending Stones. Which is right there. 29. It's more points. Stan, number 3.
Glamour armor. And I love this because it, especially for a character that has high charisma, you're just asking for role-playing opportunities of, get ready for those deceptions, intimidations, persuasion checks, to just start flying around the table. I have a set of this in a 3.5 campaign, which is a lot of fun to do impersonations and stuff. Lesser is the Cloak of Many Fashions, which Alaric has in our Patreon game that I use a lot. So it's a lot of fun to have an alter ego or have a rogue, have it turn into plate mail and pretend to be a knight and use that to intimidate someone to stand down in a fight.
So it's +1
A lot of
armor
fun
that
with that.
can change its appearance to
Mhm.
look like any other kind of clothing or armor. I wonder why it's listed specifically as glamored studded leather when you could use it as any kind of
It's it tends because of that. I think it's because of that charisma bonus.
Hmm.
It's going to be a bard or a rogue that's probably using it.
I'm just gonna put glamored armor. For 3. Yeah, I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, my character uses it frequently to impersonate a purple dragon knight from Cormier.
Nice.
We're one of the neighboring Dale lands, and he'll just turn that on and walk in, and there's a bunch of Zentarum in the area, and he'll say, "Stand down now, or you all die."
Shout out
And it's
also to the Hat of Disguise for giving you an even more powerful version, but the hat does require attunement.
Glamour armor sounds like it's one of the items I'm less familiar with. So now that I'm aware of it, it's like it seems like a really good bard item. Like showing off, being flashy and persuasive. Like, oh, are you sure you don't want to listen to me? How about now?
I'm wearing this armor.
Well, and you can also make it look like you're not wearing armor at all. Make it look like you're wearing street clothes,
Nothing at
and
all.
they're not prepared to go up against someone who's actually armored. So a lot of fun you can do with it.
Another way of just duplicitous and lying, which my players love. Morgan, number 3.
For this one, I chose the Dust of Dryness. It's a neat little item, another uncommon item, and each bag has 7 to 10 pinches of the dust in it, and each one sucks up 15 feet on a side cube of water, and then it condenses that water down into a little pea-sized thing that weighs nothing. So you can basically take a whole bunch of water and take it wherever you want. And you could do things like put it in a sling
We're playing
and throw
Minecraft
it,
now.
you know. Yeah, it's like literally you can do so many different things with it. You can set traps with it. You can one of the things that I really like to do is use it as a safety feature on boats. You know, oh, there's a leak that's coming in. Throw some dust of dryness on it, and all of a sudden, later on, you have a weapon that you can pull out later on. So it's just a neat little thing that, and because it's a finite supply, you only can use it so much, and you'll find that players will just try to use it in lots of different situations.
It is interesting that you start off with something you can use, which is the pinches of dust to get rid of water, but you don't lose it. You then gain a pellet that you can then smash and turn back into water. So you've given the party essentially a different kind of magic item. And I guess could you have two
attack
at the
a
same time?
gelatinous cube with it, and then carry that around with you and attack the gelatinous cube.
I thought you were picking this item for a totally different reason. I don't remember it exactly, but there is this forum post or going around about how with the dust of dryness, you can create a nuclear explosion because something about how the expansion and condensation and the pressurized when it repressurizes and expands, it's under so much pressure that it explodes into like a nuclear bomb, literally, essentially. How does that go again? I don't know which DM would allow it, but like literally you are making a nuclear explosion because I think the idea is that you put it in like an impenetrable force field, and then when it goes into a pellet and it goes back into water, it takes up more area, so it's like a pressure bomb or something, you know?
You put all the
No
pellets
physics in my D&D game.
Yeah. You put all the
Here's some
pellets
vitamins.
inside the bag of holding, smash it up, and then you've got a whole thing of water you can suddenly just unleash on things. All right.
But that's like the peasant railgun. Don't do that.
Don't do that. My number 3 I've noticed we're all picking a lot of more uncommon, lower level items because I think they're just so useful, and it's what a lot of DMs use in a lot of situations. My number 3 is definitely that. It's the Cloak of Protection, which is such a frequently used item in all our campaigns, similar to all the other ones I've picked, frankly. Very simple. Gives you a +1 bonus to AC and saving throws. That is a huge bonus. Not the sexiest thing to get for a player necessarily, but a huge thing long term. It does require attunement, so it maybe you find a replacement for it, but probably much later on in your career, because +1 to AC and saves is a huge bonus for a good long chunk of your D&D career, and is usually always worth that attunement slot. And pretty much every single player at the table can use that item in a fight over that item. Also, it appears basically twice in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Flip over to the Ring of Protection. It's the same fucking item. It's the exact same item.
But
except you can technically stack it with the Cloak of Protection.
Well, I've always given the cloak out whenever I've given it out because it's just cooler to have a cloak than a little ringy.
Agreed.
And I've never given it to a player or shown it to a player, and they haven't been and have them be like, "Oh, this." Yeah. They're always happy to have it. It's they're not using their cloak slot. They're already wearing armor. Free AC bonus. They love it. They're happy.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So shout out to the Cloak of Protection. I think it does its job and is always an appreciated item.
Except for by Rye, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, that's true. It gives away the cloak to other people. Number 2, Lucas.
Alchemy Jug. Love it. It's so stupid but brilliant. It's just mayonnaise. It gives out mayonnaise.
No, right?
And honey, and it's good for just so my players. It's like the ultimate utility item. Yeah, I suppose you could use it in combat to pour out some oil. Who's doing that?
Yeah,
it's the ultimate utility item.
Yeah, make a hammy in the middle of combat.
Yeah, you could use it to get enemies drunk or poison them. Or actually, I had in one of my dungeons, I had a door that had no keyhole, but it had a mouth, and you had to feed it food.
Nice.
So all my players were like, I can give it a lot of mayonnaise.
Does it like pour out honey too or something?
Yeah,
it does. So the options are, I think it'd be really funny, by the way, if you created a chaotic version of this where you poured it and didn't know what the fuck was coming out until you started pouring. But the way it's written is, I think you do get to choose acid, basic poison, beer, honey, mayonnaise, oil, vinegar, fresh water, salt water, and wine. And they even list exactly how much you get of each of those different things, which is a funny table.
I love how my players are like, what kind of wine? So can I pick any kind of wine? Or what kind of...
Yeah.
Add dragon piss to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, beer is the same thing. That's a lot of different versions of that.
Oh yeah, as long as it's beer, you could have whatever flavor you want or type, dark or light or anything.
Zima.
I do think it's a very fun item for that very reason. I think I'm pretty sure I've read interviews with, I think it was either Crawford or Perkins, where they're like, yeah, we added mayonnaise because it's fucking hilarious, or that kind of basic thing where it's like somebody was like, what's the funniest liquid that we could probably put in here?
Mayonnaise, though, it would be great because it's actually really useful. It's basically just jelly, thick oil. You can use it to grease the hinges on a door or something. Or
I like that it comes with oil and vinegar, but no, we're gonna use mayonnaise to grease everything. I love it. No, I love the alchemy jug. I totally agree with the. This is one of those items where I saw it on there. I was like, oh fuck yeah, the alchemy jug. Such a hilariously useful item. Cory, number 2.
Candle of Invocation.
Candle of Invocation. All right, what's this one?
I accidentally gave one to a druid in the first 5th edition campaign we played. And every player that has played a druid or cleric since then has gone looking for one specifically and requested that there be one in there for them.
Like endless first level spells.
Yeah. Infinite first level spells.
What?
If your party has similar alignments, they get advantage on saving throws while they're close to the candle while it's lit. It lasts for 4 hours in 1 minute increments, so it's 240 uses.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's very popular for clerics and druids in my game.
Alternatively, when you light the candle for the first time, you can cast the gate spell with it.
Mhm.
Is that the one like summons demons and shit?
Yep.
That's what I thought this was initially, because it's like the candle of invocation. But wow, that's crazy.
Yep. Nothing like your cleric or druid having infinite first level spell slots.
But it is still finite, right? At some
Well, it
point?
is, but you use it in 1 minute increments. It's good for
Oh,
4 hours over the course of its lifetime.
gotcha.
So that's 240 encounters.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so it'll last a whole campaign.
Who the hell
cool.
wants
You
to?
could like that and then cast what's that? Familiar, and you can get like an imp or a quasit or something like that if you're mage.
Who the hell wants to track the time remaining on this thing? That seems like a pain in the butt.
My clerics and druids.
I'm sorry.
They want
a piece of paper with a bunch of
healing
lines on
word
it.
for free every
Yeah.
round as a bonus action.
Good lord.
Infinite bless spells. Yeah. They all go looking for it. Infinite charm
Okay,
casting.
I have a follow-up question. How did you accidentally give this item out?
Well, it was a module that I was playing from a third-party source, and I didn't read the treasure for the encounter. And there happened to be a druid in the party, and I was reading the treasure table, and it said, "Oh, Candle of Invocation. I wonder what that does." And the druid just about had a heart attack when he found out what it did, and and then he used it in every encounter from then until the end of the campaign. So
This be a
after
lesson.
that, every cleric and druid that I ever had play in my party wanted one.
Know which items you're giving out to your party is a solid lesson to be learned here.
Yeah.
Refus number 2 also said the alchemy jug. Said acid, beer, and mayonnaise all in one handy jug. We accept no responsibility if you wanted wine and poured a cup of oil. Please try again tomorrow. Seriously, this is just a fun item for players. Agreed on that, which it's already rocketing to the top of the list, the alchemy jug. With these number 2 slots. James, for number 2, said the robe of the Archmage. Now we're getting up there. Which one is this? Robe of the Archmage. Legendary, requires attunement by a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. If you aren't wearing armor, your armor class is 15 plus your dex. So that's already medium armor. You have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And your spell save, DC, and spell attack bonus each increase by 2. Alright, it's just a base level, like, super powerful buff. Or multiple buffs with one item. Yeah, that's really good. Advantage on saves against spells. And, again, other magical effects. Spell save, DC, and spell attack bonus increase by 2. Alright. Yeah, that's really good. I would argue other robes are a little more fun, but it's hard to argue with a bunch of just solid passive buffs. Robe of the Arch Magi. It's plural. Number 2, Jared.
I picked Noblezor's Marvelous Pigments.
You do love the named ones.
I do. What I like to do in campaigns is, I know you guys like to roll on the chart of like the trinkets that you get and have like the griffin fat or whatever it is that y'all laughed about for like 6 months on, what was that, when y'all went to Jolt?
That sounds
I
familiar.
like to give this one, if somebody, like, based on background, if they chose like an artisan, I'll give them this one, and you can draw just about any non-magical tangible item that's not over 25 gold pieces. So, like you can even like 1,000 square foot or 10,000 cubic feet. You can like come up,
You
and there's
create
a
the
locked
item?
door. Yeah, there's a locked door. You just draw a picture of a door on the locked door and just open the door inside the locked door and walk
Oh
in.
my gosh.
Or paint a pit on the ground, and people can fall in. So
What I love is giving this to characters whose their characters aren't artists. So like at one point I gave it to them and they got ambushed in their inn and they blew off the wall with a lightning bolt. Like, oh, the innkeeper is going to come on, they're going to get mad. So they drew a new wall, but it looked really crappy, like a child drew it. And but like, hey, it's real now.
it's all crooked.
This is a
Like
fascinating item. I've never looked at this twice before.
This is really cool.
You
Yeah.
can just create items.
But I'd like to think of it like, I need a new sword, and you draw a sword, and it looks like a toddler drew it. Like, it works.
Yeah, that's a funny idea too. It's the what was that? Scribble Knots, the game where you could like type
Yeah.
things and it'll just spawn in the universe.
I
God.
always think of this as Wile E. Coyote painting a tunnel on the side of
Yes.
the cliff.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's funny. This is fascinating. Yeah, very rare, so it's definitely a powerful item. Create three-dimensional object painting that you're turning stuff on a 3D printer.
Right.
Nothing can have a value greater than 25 gold pieces. That's pretty hard to adjudicate as a DM, I think. I guess a lot of weapons have like item costs in there.
Like most martial weapons.
Yeah.
And
I like it. That's a cool pick. That's a really cool item. I've not looked at that too many times. Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments. Very rare. Number 2, Brandon said the Bag of Tricks. Also a big fan of this one. The bag of random Pokemon animals coming out. Players have definitely enjoyed using that item. Number 2, Jason said the Ring of Jumping. Jump all over the damn place. Adds a totally new angle to both problem solving and combat. Turns your character into someone from Baldur's Gate 3. It's a lot of jumping in that game. One of those items you don't really think much of until a player has it. Kind of like there's boots, I think, that do a similar thing. And all of a sudden they have this increased mobility and it gives them a lot of different options in battle. Which I've definitely seen that come into play. So that is probably a cool ring. And again, not one that sounds sexy on paper, but when you're actually in the game, you're like, oh yeah, this is really fucking useful. Stan's number 2.
Bag of Holding.
Yeah.
Gygax thought hiring a whole bunch of porters to bring a horde of a dragon back to town was fun. I don't.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about how much we like these kind of portable Mary Poppin bags things. And they're ending up on a lot of our lists. So huge shout out to the bags, the haversacks, all those cool items.
And it's fun when the players forget something in there too.
Ooh, that could be good. Somebody's got to keep track of what's in the bag of holding. Morgan, number 2.
For this one, I picked the Ring of the Ram. Just a simple ring that's a battering ram. You know, how can you go wrong? I find that it just is helpful in almost every situation to have something that lets you just do quick force damage and knock something back.
I feel like I gave my players this one time and nobody used it. Or nobody even equipped it. Ring produces a Spectral's Ram's Head and makes its attack roll a +7 bonus and hit for each charge you spend. The target takes 2d force damage and is pushed 5 feet away from you. Requires attunement, but yeah, it gives everybody just an extra attack.
that would be like a monk could use that. It would be like the paladin smite with force instead of
Yeah. It's interesting that it's always a +7. That's just a flat number. It doesn't scale one way or the other. So early on, that's fantastic. Mid game, that's probably about average, and then late game may actually be taking a little bit of a hit there. But the fact that it does just force damage and stuff is pretty solid.
Yeah, the other thing with alternately you can spend 1 to 3 of the ring's charges as an action to try to break an object you can see within 60 feet of you. That is worn or carried.
cool.
The ring makes a strength check with a +5 bonus for each charge used. So that is
Yeah.
a +15 possible.
Wow.
Pop someone's necklace of fireballs. That could be fun to watch.
Nut check a giant. Bam.
Yep. My number 2 is one we've talked about and seen a lot before, which is Flame Tongue. I am a fan of, although I've never actually used it in my games, never given it out, which I should, but I like the idea of a sword that you kind of activate and then, glows and does extra elemental damage, and that's just very cool. And I think we've talked about how you can reflavor it in all these different ways to make it appropriate for basically any kind of player character is just wielding a weapon and likes cool light up stuff. So shout out to Flame Tongue. All right,
Cool
we're on.
little
Go ahead.
nugget pice. That sword was actually in the Dritz series book as well.
Flame Tongue was?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's. I'm the only person that hasn't read the Dritz, I guess. Everybody nods their head sagely. All right, we're at number 1, our number 1 most favorite item from the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. Lucas.
Sovereign glue. I love it. I've loved it since I played. I loved it since I played back in 3.5 when I started. It's just so you can cause so much chaos and havoc and tricks and traps. You could. It's just. It's a double-edged sword, and it can be used. So it could be useless if you don't know what you're doing with it, or it could be incredibly powerful. I wish it wasn't so legendary. I wish it was more common so that we could just give it out more easily. But it's wonderful. It's great.
You are absolutely chaotic. I love that super glue is a magic item in D&D.
Right.
They're like, they came up with all this crazy like flaming swords, and they're like, what about like just super glue? If that was just something players could find, like, oh yeah, that actually be a really powerful magic item.
I think they could lower it like several ranks of like, oh, it's permanent glue. What happens if you glue someone? What if you glue yourself to a door? Well, you'll just lose a layer of skin. You'll survive.
Yeah.
Isn't it like a like the opposite, like a solvent or something?
There's the
Universal solvent.
Yeah, the universal solvent. Okay.
But I mean, I argue that like it's not that catastrophic because at worst you'll lose like the surface layer of whatever you're gluing.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's super glue. It's magic super glue.
It's magic super glue. I do agree. I think it's weird that it's legendary, and I think that's what's turned me off of using that, because I see the legendary, I'm like, oh shit, that's just game breakingly
It should be
insane.
lowered like double ranks. It's not that awful if you just make it so that you rip off the skin or surface or whatever.
Yeah.
And even then, it's still really good. And you can get super creative with it.
I would be terrified of what my players would do with that, where it literally says the only way it can be broken is by universal solvent, oil of etherealness, or with a motherfucking wish spell.
Yeah, but like, oh, you glued the enemy to a door. Well, they can just come back and they just lost a bit of skin and hair. But they're pissed now.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it doesn't like literally take that thing out. But very funny. Yep, I agree. Cory, number 1 favorite magic item on the DMG.
The deck of many things.
Oh boy.
No singular magic item throughout any edition has caused more memorable moments or just derailed campaigns or caused us to go off on a side quest more than the deck of many things. And I just love to watch the greed overtake the characters on how many cards they're going to draw. And then when they vanish, the cards that they weren't able to draw just spill out in front of their party members, causing even more chaos in front of them. It's, yeah. And my players like it so much they request that there's one in every campaign.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is one that I'm also very intimidated by. It has over I think it is the biggest amount of space devoted to this one item in this whole section of magic items. That's not like a artifact level item.
Didn't somebody actually make physical playing cards?
A lot of them,
this?
yeah. There's
you
a
could
physical
buy?
product. The book.
I have
Yeah.
the book and I have the playing cards.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I recommend it because I recommend it as someone who used it back in the day. Well, not back to the original version, but 3.5. One of my campaigns with my high school friends, I introduced the deck, and I'm like, well, this is the campaign now, because it like I wouldn't say it derailed it, but it definitely changed the course of the campaign. Like, okay, this is happening now.
These things are wild. Like, you just get transported into like an extra planar dungeon somewhere.
And then you have to go rescue them.
Yeah.
My player's got a castle.
You are granted the ability to cast the wish spell 1d3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ.
That's a famous scene from Critical Role Campaign 1.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and it led to a whole side quest to get him back from where he was imprisoned.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. It can break your campaign, but it's a
Yeah,
lot of
I think that's the thing, is you have to be prepared to be okay with having the campaign be broken by this magic item. But if you are, then it does seem like the players, I know my players would fucking love this. My wife would just, her eyes would glaze over. Like, oh my god, random cards that do insane shit. Yeah. That's absolute madness. Deck of Many Things. You're not alone though, because Refus also put Deck of Many Things as number 1, which is going to quickly rocket it to the top of the list, I think. And wrote, "This must be the most famous D&D magic item ever, so much so it got its own source book. A DM should never use this in a game with an important plot structure. pretty much what I just said. Otherwise, it's fabulous. I used this with an adventure built around finding cards streamed as a charity game, and it was pure chaos and hilarity. That's, you know what? If you base your campaign around the deck of many things, that's actually a really cool idea, and I respect that a lot. You're like collecting cards or something, or yeah, that's a neat feature. But I've run just regular games that I do not want it to be necessarily completely upended like that, so not something I'd be able to use in a normal game. James/Genocider number 1 is the Staff of the Magi, presumably to go with his Robe of the Magi. This is the equivalent of giving, what, just a shit ton of spells? Let's see, Staff of Fire, Charming. It must be is it Arch Magi? Staff?
The Magi.
Staff of, maybe it's the Magi. It is the Magi, okay. It's a +2 quarterstaff, because that's what they're using it for. 50 charges. It can absorb spells. That's pretty fucking huge. And it can cast Dispel Magic, Fireball, Conjure Elemental, Flaming Sphere, Ice Storm, Invisibility, Knock, Lightning Bolt, Pass Wall, Plane Shift, Telekinesis, Wall of Fire, or Web. All the best fucking spells, basically.
You haven't got to the best part.
You can also use an action to cast one of the following spells from the staff without using any charges. Arcane Lock, Detect Magic, Enlarge, Reduce, Light, Mage, Hand Protection, Evil, and Good. So you can cast a lot of the best first level spells for free forever. And then you can do a insane thing where you break the staff, like this specifically says, over your knee or a solid surface, and create an insane explosion where you instantly travel to a random plane of existence. Or take force damage from the explosion. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. God, it's legendary requires movement by a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. Do we really need to give our high level sorcerer, warlock, or wizard that much more spellcasting capabilities, though? I'm sure they would love it.
They want more. They want stuff too. They don't need the stuff, but they want stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. I feel like having the free spells would be enough of an incentive there.
That has wisp of like the staff that Raistlin had in the Dragonlance series.
It reminds me of the Black Staff.
Was that Kelvin Blackstaff?
Yeah, who's in the staff now.
Which one, Raistlin?
For Vajra. Vajra is the current Black Staff in Waterdeep now.
Jared number 1.
I chose the Ring of Mind Shielding. This is a really specific item that I like to use as like an heirloom. I've actually made a campaign around this that went on a quest because they needed to like get information that was unknown. And the ring's pretty cool with it. The neat part of it is if you die with the ring on, you can choose to have your soul stay in the ring and communicate with whoever wears the ring. So there's a lot of really cool RP factors that can go on with this as well.
Yeah, it's a fucking like
nobody can detect your thoughts.
Low level phylactery. Like your soul enters, or what is it, Horcrux? What do they call the Harry Potter thing? Yeah, no, it's a cool feature for a passive ability. I literally stole from this for one of the items in my recent campaign in terms of the like having immunity to mind reading and all that. I didn't put the soul entering item thing, but that's a neat idea.
And you can make the ring invisible and nobody knows you wear it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like that one item that's like it can't be detected by any kind of detect magic shit.
And if you put it on, you can't block if there's a soul in it, from communicating with you telepathically. So it just kind of goes on and on and on, and you go insane because you can't sleep.
Now here's a cool idea. What if your player's got a ring of mind shielding that already had a soul in it?
That's what I do. I have either like their great grandfather is in the ring that they have to track down. So
nice. Which is also a cool idea. It's like a low level sentient magic item basically. Like all it can do is kind of like talk to them, I guess.
Yeah, it's uncommon. So
it's Bob from Dresden Files.
I have read a couple of those books. I haven't seen a whole lot of sentient items on here. I'm noticing also. Number 1 for Brandon was the Bag of Holding. That is definitely getting some more points. Where's our bag? Right there. Almost appeared on every single ranking of somebody's list somewhere. Jason said the Alchemy Jug. That one's also getting very popular here. Says so much roleplay potential and often ends with full-on discussions about what food the party is going to cook that night. My favorite was my Tomb of Annihilation group trying to figure out the best kind of aioli for Stegosaurus steaks. Yeah, I think players can have a lot of fun with the Alchemy Jug, as we've mentioned. Which gets 5 points.
You got oil and vinegar. You can make salad dressing with it too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, mayonnaise is like ubiquitous. Like you can do all kinds of shit with mayonnaise. Stan, number 1.
Immovable rod. So many options. You never know what a player is going to do with it. I've used it for seeing them hold someone prisoner. They tied their hands, click the rod underneath someone's chin, and they basically put them up against the wall. And you're not going anywhere.
It does say, I read it earlier, and it does
unless
say
you're over 8,000 pounds.
Unless you're over 8,000 pounds, or you can make a DC 30 strength check. It does say you can actually make a strength check. Obviously, 30 is pretty fucking up there. But and you move it like 10 feet or something if you can do that. What a boss move, man! If you can move the immovable rod. Move the immovable rod. Morgan, number 1 most favoriteest magic item.
I also chose the immovable rod. It's just one of those items that works so well in every situation. Just like Stan said, you never know how someone's going to use it too. It could just show up as you're fighting someone, or it could be, hey, but we have to burn down this bar full of slavers. Let's bar the door and set it on fire. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's technically not a combat item, but you can see where it has combat applications for sure, and obviously a ton of utility applications. Definitely one of those items that I think was on my top 10, just didn't quite crack my top 5. I don't think. I'm trying to remember what my number 1 is now. Oh, I think I remember it. And then yeah, so Moo Rod gets a lot of love and points now. My number 1, we have seen on this list before, although not nearly as much as I thought, is the Bag of Tricks. I love the idea of an item that, first of all, it's got the chaos that I love, and I think players love too, where you don't know quite what's going to happen. Which in this case, you're summoning an animal. So it's technically going to be good for you, but the animal could be anything from, a tiger to like a rat or something. I love those different flavors of the bag. And obviously, a DM could even reskin that further. And we've seen that, I believe, in Rime of the Frostmaiden. It had its own version of the bag with a bunch of like cold-related creatures that you can pull out of it. You get a certain amount that you can pull out. They're friendly to you. I mean, it just creates an instant companion. And you can even have multiples out at the same time, I believe. Just very, very fun, cool item that my players, I think, are always very delighted by. Raymond especially made that his whole thing, I feel like, in our last campaign once he had the Bag of Tricks. So I'm a huge fan of this item. Bag of... No, I can't find it on my list, though. I know it appeared on here once before, right? Anybody see Bag of Tricks on there? There it is. All the way at the bottom, near the bottom. Jeez. Yeah, only appeared on one other list total, so unfortunately not given as much love as I was hoping. We do have some honorable mentions that folks have written down there. Lucas mentioned a lot of the ones that kind of are on this list, basically. Sunblade, Deck of Many Things, Bag of Holding, Sending Stones. Jared put down, actually, ones that we hadn't seen before. Apparatus of Qualish, which is like the fucking submarine thing, which is very cool. Yeah.
What is that? I guess.
I think there's one in, is it Dragon Heist? Is that right? Is there one sitting in? No? Okay.
There's definitely one in Dungeons of the Mad Mage. But,
maybe that's what I'm thinking of then. Okay.
I had a GM that used that as like a roving merchant that would just pop up.
Oh, that's cool.
Every once in a while.
Animated Shield, which is a neat one, just kind of appears as a shield. Belt of Dwarven Kind, which I think turns you kind of into a dwarf, in addition to giving you bonuses.
You give it to an elf so they can grow a beard.
And if you're a dwarf, you just become the dwarfiest dwarf.
The dwarfiest
Right.
dwarfs.
Yep.
Nice. What is our consensus here? It looks like let's see, is 13 the highest?
That and the alchemy jug and the bag of holding.
Let's see, where is the alchemy jug? Is 13. The bag of holding is 13. All right, so I think if we did an overall top 5, we actually have a tie for the first time between our top 2, which is the bag of holding and the alchemy jug. So if those are 1 and 2, technically, and they're both tied at 1, we need to do 3 more, which 12 is the immovable rod, which definitely got a lot of love. By the way, for those of you, I'm ranking them. Anything that was ranked at 5 gets 1 point. At 4 gets 2 points. All the way up to ranking of 1 gets 5 points. That's how we do our little point system. After 12, it looks like we go to 10, which is the deck of many things, because of those 2 first places, I think.
Flame tongue.
Oh, where's Flame Tongue?
Okay.
I'm happy with that of many things being up there, to be honest.
And then Flame Tongue. Yeah, you're right. So that's 2 tied ones. So there we go. I think that's our list, right? Of top 5 items, which is bag of holding and alchemy jug at the very top. Bag of holding does not surprise me. I think that one, again, one of the most classic D&D items, and just we all love the idea of the Mary Poppins bag. Alchemy jug is a little more surprising, but I think at the end of the day, everybody ends up putting it somewhere in their top 10. So I think that ends up making it pretty high on the list. It's generally loved by everybody. Immovable rod is another one that ended up with a lot of people's lists. Just it's a funny idea for an item, very unique, and players find fun ways to use them. And then the other 2 are deck of many things. 2 people really liked the deck of many things, which I respect. Definitely changed the entire course of the campaign. And then Flame Tongue, which is one of those just really cool ideas for an item that's very simple conceptually, which is just your light up cool sword that does extra fire stuff. And we've seen other, Holy Avenger appeared on here, Sunblade appeared on here, but I think Flame Tongue just maybe a little bit more of a classic idea that people can reflavor and stuff.
It's less class specific and more
That's
more
very true
versatile.
too. That's
My biggest takeaway, my biggest surprise, and makes me want to reconsider is like, I need to look into the immovable rod more. Like I don't appreciate it enough.
Yeah.
I think what I might do for my next game would be like have villains or NPCs use it for tricks, and then that'll inspire the PCs to say we can do something similar, or what else can we do now that we got it from the bad guys or whatever.
That's true. Yeah, let your obviously it's easy for a villain to use a flame tongue sword or something, but what if they were using an immovable rod in some interesting way? Or the alchemy jug. Maybe the villain is actually smearing mayonnaise everywhere. We don't know. All right,
It explains how the tavern's open in the middle of nowhere.
There you go. That is our favorite magic items from the 2014 DMG, which will very soon be outdated with new and probably very similar magic items. Thank you to Cory, Jared, Morgan, Stan, and Lucas for joining me for this month's DM Roundtable. And thank you to all the patrons for submitting your top 5 lists and making these lists and discussions so much fun to have. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brennan, Genocider, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Cory, Big Nut, John F, John L, Tyler, Nathan, Camp Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, The Reldron, Stephanie, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Lumpy Spuds, Sharni, Warden, Harold, Unimonia, LLC, Jamie, Reese, Tom, and AJ, and gold patrons RPG, Papercramps, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, The Lizard Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Karen, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. Hope to see you all again for our next DM Roundtable.